guys, what is going on? So today I want to bring you a different video, and this is a video that I've seen, or basically I've been wanting to make for a while. There's been comments asking some questions, and I want to answer basically those all in one video. It is raining outside. Good old Florida loves to rain a lot right now. So I wanted to tell you guys a little bit of a story about how I bought my 2003 Cobra Terminator, which is my dream car, was my dream car. It still is. I still have, aspirations to purchase other cars, which could be, further dream cars, but the Terminator, for all intents and purposes, was and still is my dream car. So in order to tell the story, I'm going to be going back quite a bit to my other cars because they are definitely part of me being able to afford and purchase my new car, which was the Cobra Terminator. I'm going to start by telling you when I bought it. It was February of 2016. I bought my 2003 Mustang Cobra, had 27,000 miles on it. It was mostly stock, had a pulley, a 276 pulley, a tune, a cold air intake, AccuFab throttle body, a catted X-pipe, and a MagnaFlow catback. It was super quiet, super stock when I bought it. The only thing that was really surprising about it is it made 470 wheel and 506 foot-pounds of torque. So first I'm going to step back a bit and talk about my first car. So my first car was a 2000 Mustang GT, had about 75,000 miles when I bought it. So it was a, first car. That is the car that I wanted. My parents did not want me getting a Mustang at all. It was pretty funny the way it worked out. I had my cousin bring me to go look at the car. I put a $1,000 deposit down on the car. I didn't know how to drive manual at the time, but I knew I wanted to buy a manual transmission car. I knew I'd be able to learn it. I had confidence in that, so I had my cousin go bring me over there. He test drove it to make sure, it seemed pretty good, and I put a $1,000 deposit on it. Previously, before that, I was 16 years old at the time. I bought that car for $7,000. I actually did have a YouTube career, or whatever you really want to call it, a tech channel about iPhones and computers and technology. I also developed a few software development things that basically left me with a lot of money and zero bills at the time, being 15, 16 years old. I actually didn't even have a license at the time of when I bought my first car. So it was a really, really funny situation. I worked really hard. I didn't necessarily have a huge value of money because no bills when I was 15, 16 years old. But I did have a good amount of money saved up, and I knew I wanted to buy a cool car. I bought the 2000 Mustang GT, and I love that car. I still wish I could buy it, but the reality is that car was cursed. I got rear-ended, the car got fixed. The engine had a lot of issues. It had a rod knock, which I actually have a video on this channel from a long time ago, which showed the rod knock sound. And it sounds similar to Turdzilla, which is funny, but Turdzilla has proven itself to not be rod knock. That car progressively got worse. Tried doing timing chains. I avoided, tried to avoid thinking that it was bottom end, did timing chains with Ashley's dad. We worked on the car, and we pulled the engine out, put it back in. It still made the noise after timing chains, and we found all the timing chain components were all broken. Ran the tube out for a while, 3,000 miles basically on it knocking, and it got significantly worse. So we ended up pulling that out. I bought a 99 Cobra engine, put it in the car, had a lot of swap problems, blew the head gaskets on it. So then we took it back out, put it back in, all within like a 2-week span. So that was a lot of fun. That car had so many problems. I loved it to death. Had side exhaust, it sounded sick, had an off-road X-pipe. I love that car. Had to just get rid of it. The funny thing is, I made out pretty well with the car. So I actually ended up selling the car for $9,500. I had bought it for $7,000 a year previous. So I did put some money into it to do the swap, but it about evened out. So I was really worried because this car was costing me a lot of money. I didn't necessarily know everything about working on cars, and it was just kept breaking down and breaking down and breaking down. So I had a lot of issues with it. I think I went through like something like 3 clutches with it because, you know, I replaced the clutch and then had to replace it again, and it had a stage 2 clutch in it initially. So I went through, yeah, it was on the 3rd clutch when I sold it because the different clutches needed to be swapped when I did the Cobra swap. And that's one of the reasons why I went with the Turdzilla Cobra swap, because I had previous knowledge of doing a 4-valve swap. So when I sold the car, I was definitely really sad. I was really bummed. I actually went to prom that year, high school, and I didn't have my Mustang, and I was really looking forward to, you know, pictures with my Mustang. A few weeks later, I actually stumbled upon a 2001 Cobra. It was listed for $14,000, and if you look back on this channel, there's actually a few videos of the 01 Cobra. I love that car. It was beautiful. I bought it with 51,000 miles. It was listed for 14 grand. I showed up with $10,000 cash, bought it. Obviously it was really easy to make the transition. I sold the other car for $9,500, came up with another $500. Boom, bought a $10,000, basically at that time it was a $14,000 car. I stole it for 10 grand. The car was lowered already. It was on FR 500 wheels. Of course, that stuff did not stop me from modifying the heck out of it. I then drove the car. That was back when I lived in Rhode Island. I drove the car to Florida for my first year of college. I did some modifications on it. I drove it back to Rhode Island for the summer. Then I drove it back down to Florida where it would stay, and I ended up actually moving down here permanently.
Kid, let it rip.
So the 2001 Cobra, it was my baby. I loved it. I started to become really used to the horsepower, and I was really itching for a supercharger. I had always wanted, ever since I bought the first car, I had always wanted an 03, 04 Cobra Terminator, especially up north. When you would see them, it would be rare. I would, you know, freak out and be like, oh my god, that's a Terminator, or that's a GT500. You know, these two cars were something that I would freak out. I'd be super excited to see them in person. So that was really my dream car. I just didn't really really see it as a possibility. So I was looking into supercharging the car. You know, supercharging the car, you're gonna need to buy a supercharger system or turbo system, $2,000 to $3,000 plus fuel system, and then you're gonna need to tune it. So I was looking into all these options and I was trying to figure out a way to come up with the money. I didn't have a YouTube channel at the time, which, you know, I was working on fixing phones at school. I was working for a phone fixing place. I just didn't have the extra money to be able to purchase a supercharger kit and do everything else and be able to fix the car if it ever broke. Because remember, if you have this car and you supercharge it and there goes all your money and you know you're happy, what happens if something goes wrong? You know, the engine blows up, you know, something goes wrong, and then you have some issues. So that was the really big problem with the Cobra. So as time went on, I ended up starting to work at VMP and, you know, started making a little bit more money. I was around cars, starting to learn more about it. I actually listed the Cobra for sale. I listed it for $14,000. I didn't want to sell it. I loved it. I loved the way it looked. I loved the way it sounded. I had boreless stingers. I had spent so long polishing the IRS exhaust on the car. So I really didn't want to sell it, but if I could sell it for $14,000, then I would, because then I would be able to add a little bit of money and achieve my dream of buying an 03 Cobra. A few months went down the line. Ashley actually really didn't want me to sell the car because, you know, she thought I would take too less for it and that I wouldn't be able to buy another car. I had a lot of people messaging me with lower offers, which I understand because I bought the car for $10,000 with significantly less miles when it was listed for 14. So other people were offering me significantly less than my asking price. I was very firm on $14,000 because the way I looked at it is if I don't sell it for that, then I can't move to the 03 Cobra that I've been dreaming about. So time goes on and a girl actually messaged me or texted me and said she wanted to come look at it, said she's okay with paying asking price, and I'm like, okay, well this seems weird, no one ever wants to pay asking price. She came, looked at the car, she drove it around. First I took her for a ride to show her the power. I don't think she had, you know, really driven a faster car before, and certainly she didn't want to beat on my car, but then she drove it, and you know, obviously 01 Cobra's manual, she drove perfectly fine. She said she loved it, really wanted it, and she was gonna come back with the money. And you know, I was really excited, but I was also really like worried. I'm like, is this really gonna sell? And the car was worth $14,000. It's a bit on the higher end, but it was a beautiful car with perfect paint. Really nice wheels, you know, really nice tires, lower it down, had powder coated valve covers. The car was just a really, really nice car. So she came and picked it up for 14 grand, and once again, I was Mustangless. Being Mustangless is really, really weird for me because I've had a Mustang since I've been able to drive. So that was a really, really weird feeling. I actually had no car too. So I actually had no car at the time. My friend Alan actually let me borrow his SN95 Mustang because I literally needed a car to get around, and that was a huge help. So I was looking around at Cobras. Basically, I wanted to pay $16,000 for a Cobra, which puts you at the market of a higher mileage Cobra. It's not unachievable, but basically at the time when I was looking for Cobras, there were none available, where previously there were a bunch available. So I actually made a commitment to buy a 03 Cobra black with 68,000 miles, had long tubes, boreless stingers, basically the works, had a pulley tune, you know, had a bunch of cool things, had 10th anniversary seats, which my Cobra actually has now. I committed to buy it, and I was going to buy it for $17,000. He was very firm on that price. I wanted to be somewhere around $16,000, but I did commit to buy it for $17,000. Well, he had a loan on it. I was waiting for that to be paid off, and basically it never ended up working out. I kept texting him saying, hey, look, I need to buy a car. I don't have a car right now. I'm borrowing a car. I'm trying to buy it, have money in hand, ready to go, you know, buy the car. And I ended up looking at my current car, the 03 Cobra Redfire, 27,000 miles. I showed up. The guy was asking 24 grand on Craigslist. I showed up. First of all, actually, to preface this, I didn't do the worst lowball, but it was a really bad lowball. I actually talked to the guy on the phone. I told him I have 17 grand cash. He'll come pick it up. He told me no. Then he texted me later, said, hey, look, you should really look at it, and you know, you'll see that it's worth, you know, worth picking up, and it might be able to come off the price a little bit. So, and I was like, well, I'm really pretty firm. So, but he thought I would go there and like come up on money, but that's all I had to, you know, spend. That would be, you know, spendable. You can't spend all your money on a car. You need to have living expenses and everything else. So 17 grand was it. That's all I was able to spend. So I went and looked at the car, and the car pretty much checked out. Had a little bit of ball joint slash steering rack bushing squeak. I just called it ball joints. I told him that. Otherwise, the car was clean. The paint was clean. Well, the car was actually pretty dirty at the time, but basically just dusty from sitting. The interior's clean. It actually had a new car smell. 27,000 miles. Had all the original documents. Has the original window sticker. Has the SVT certificate. Has everything. It had ugly window louvers on it at the time, but that's not really a big deal. And it also had an ugly paint matched Mach 1 chin spoiler, which leads us to today, where we're still dealing with chin spoilers, but I really like the new one. So, but a lot of people gave me a lot of crap for a while for having the Mach 1 chin spoiler. There you go, it came on the car. So I offered $17,000. I was actually talking to the owner's son. He laughed and said no. I pulled out, you know, a stack like this, and he said no. He called his dad, who's the owner of the car, and his dad actually said yes, which to my surprise, I was like, whoa, like, this is weird, because I was still committed to buy the other car, but it was just taking so long. And I, of course, ended up, I was like, wow, $17,000. You know, we wrote up some paperwork. I drove home. And as I was driving home, I was really in disbelief. It was my dream car. I'm driving home. I was so careful with it. I actually didn't even get into boost because, you know, I was really worried. I didn't want to, you know, hurt the car. I also worked at VMP at the time, and I knew that I would get, you know, Justin or Joe to tune it, and then make sure it's safe, because the car actually looked like it had sat for a while, so I didn't know who tuned it before. I didn't want to worry about breaking anything, so I didn't get on it at all for about 2 weeks after buying it. I was driving it, but did not hit boost. And we got it tuned. I made 477 wheel horsepower, 506 torque with just whatever was on the car. And I was so happy. That was like the dream I had in 03 Cobra. I was so excited. I brought it to the track. It actually broke the first time at the track, which I was freaking out because I had just spent a lot of money on this car. It turned out it was just the radiator fan shroud. It actually broke. The plastic broke. It sounded like a knock, but it was just the fan shroud that broke. I then went back to the track, and the car ran a 11.7 at 119, 120 miles an hour, and I was so happy because I had actually learned to drag race on the 2001 Cobra with IRS suspension and all. Basically, I was launching the 01 Cobra, which went a best of, I think, 13.1 at 105. The car was very heavy, and I don't think it was making a lot of power, the 01 Cobra, but I did learn how to launch it, 5,000 RPM, slip the clutch out, which I know everyone has always said that I'm super wrong how I launch cars. But 01 Cobra making 300 wheel horsepower was launching at a 165 60 foot. So the 01 Cobra best of 13.1 at 105. I learned how to drive that car, got in the 03 Cobra, which was just a significantly faster version of that car. It was also red, and yeah, I went 11.7 at 121 or 120 or something like that, and I was super happy. So I can go on in this video to talk about, you know, basically from the Cobra to now, but I want to cut that short there. But I wanted to explain, you know, how did I buy my dream car? It was the perfect chain of events with the different cars. It was almost like flipping the cars, because I bought the 2000 GT for $7,000. Got 9,500 for it with, you know, I did put money into it. I bought the 2001 Cobra for 10 grand. I put very limited money into it actually, which is, you know, kind of surprising. But yeah, I put very limited money into it at the time. And then I sold the 01 Cobra for 14 grand, which was quite the profit. Added a little bit of money and lowballed the crap out of someone, and I got my dream car. Fast forward now, you know, things are significantly different. You know, I got the YouTube channel, which is definitely a very helpful income, which helps me modify the cars, entertain you guys, and I hope that that continues to grow to where we can do so much more. You know, travel, build the cars faster, have a shop. You know, there's so many more things that I want to do. I also currently have a job, Ashley has a job, so we're able to support, you know, the various different things that we do. Now that we have the truck, we have Turdzilla, we have the 16 GT with a Whipple on it. We also work with a lot of great companies, and really I'm happy to where things have progressed. So I was 18 years old when I bought my dream car, my 03 Cobra. My next dream car, I don't really know what that is, because I keep, you know, my head keeps moving around. I've always wanted a 1314 GT500, but there's other things that I've been looking at. I mean, I really want an 18 GT right now, but with us just buying the truck, it's really not plausible. Maybe in the future when the channel grows more, I really want a newer car for me to be able to tinker with, because Ashley's car, she gets her car the way that she wants it, not the way I want it. So I would love a newer car to be able to play around with. I've also really wanted a GT350, because my new love for turning and tracks, autocross, that would be so perfect to have one of those cars to be able to have as a track toy and daily-ish driver. I usually drive the truck nowadays on the daily, but you know, that would be really awesome. So I guess I don't really know what my next dream car is. I also have, you know, supercar dream cars, which, you know, like a Ford GT, Lamborghini, GTR, as anyone does. And maybe those things will come eventually. So I hope that filled you guys in on a lot of different things with the car. I want to make an update video on the Cobra and how it came from, you know, stock to what it is now. But I have a bunch of really cool things coming, like the fuel system, E85, probably doing a Metco 4-pound lower, adding some boost. I really want to change out to a Whipple supercharger. There's a bunch of things coming there. You know, things are just, they're coming together. It just takes a bit of time. I don't have a workshop necessarily to work in, so I'll work, you know, rely on Nick to be able to work with him. I have a G-Force one-piece drive shaft waiting to go in Ashley's car. So there's a lot of cool things going on. So if you are new here and you enjoyed my video or this video, most of my videos aren't like this, but I figured since it's a rainy type of day outside, this would be a cool video to make and fill you guys in on how I bought my dream car at age 18. So make sure you slap the like button down below, leave a comment, let us know what you think, and we'll see you guys next time.